So today we're going to talk about William Henry Perkin. He was just a teenager, a chemist who failed, completely failed, at what he was trying to do. And in doing so, he ended up changing the world in ways that nobody, least of all him, could have ever seen coming. It's an amazing story about ambition, a total accident, and how a little splash of color kicked off a massive revolution.
All right, so let's just start with this question. We usually think of failure as, the end of the road. But what if it's not? What if it's actually the starting gun? What if one little mistake in a tiny lab in some guy's house could set off this huge wave of innovation that, believe it or not, we are still riding today?
To get this story, we've got to go back in time. We're in London, it's 1856. Think gas lamps, horses and buggies, and a huge scientific challenge that everybody thought was just completely impossible.
Okay, so let's meet our guy, William Perkin. And get this, he's only 18 years old, but he's already landed a gig as an assistant to one of the top chemists in the world at the time, a guy named August von Hofmann. Perkin is super ambitious, he's brilliant, and he's just totally inspired by the scientific rock stars of his day, like Michael Faraday.
Now, Perkin's boss, Hofmann, was obsessed with this stuff, coal tar. And I mean, this was literally the gunk left over from making gas for the city's lights. It's sticky, it's black, it's industrial waste. Most people just saw it as filth. But Hofmann, he saw pure potential. He was convinced that this mess was holding the secret building blocks for all sorts of incredible new chemicals.
And that brings us to the big challenge that kicked this whole thing off. Hofmann basically wondered out loud one day if it was possible to make quinine, which was the essential medicine for treating malaria, out of this disgusting coal tar. If you could create a synthetic version, it would be a medical game changer. Well, young Perkin heard this, and a light bulb just went off. He set up a makeshift lab in his house and decided, you know what, I'm going to be the one to solve this impossible puzzle.
To really get what a big deal this story is, you have to understand what color meant back then. Bright, vibrant colors that didn't fade, that was a luxury for the super rich. Take Aniline Purple, for example. It was so insanely rare, made from the mucus of sea snails, that it was literally reserved for emperors. It's where the phrase, born to the purple, comes from. So the quiet dream of every chemist was to figure out how to make color in a lab, to make it cheap, available to everyone, and maybe, just maybe, even better than what you could find in nature.
So picture it. Perkins in his little home lab, trying to cook up quinine from coal tar, and he's failing over and over again. But then, in the middle of one of these failures, something happens that absolutely no one saw coming.
The process itself was almost laughably simple. He mixes a couple of chemicals he got from coal tar, aniline and potassium dichromate, and, well, he just gets his black, sticky sludge. Same old failure. He's about to toss it out, but wait, he stops. He sees this weird little purplish glint in the beaker, so just on a whim, he pours some alcohol in, and bam, the whole beaker just lights up with this absolutely beautiful, brilliant purple liquid.
He hadn't made quinine, not even close. What he had just done was discover the world's very first synthetic dye. He had accidentally stumbled through a doorway into a whole new world of color.
Okay, so a discovery is one thing, but turning a happy accident into a full-blown revolution? That's something else entirely. And this is where the story shifts from just blind luck to some serious guts and vision.
I just want you to look at this number for a second. 18. That's how old William Perkin was when he decided to gamble his entire future on this flash of purple he found in a beaker. I mean, think about it. At an age when most of us are trying to figure out what to major in, he was about to walk away from a top-tier science career to become an industrialist.
His mentor, the great Hofmann, flat out told him it was a bad idea. He said, stick to pure research, that's where the prestige is. But Perkin saw something bigger. He saw the future. So he patented his discovery, called it Aniline Purple, and quit the prestigious Royal College of Science to build a company from nothing.
And let me tell you, the hurdles he faced were just massive. Bankers literally laughed him out of their offices. I mean, would you invest in a teenager who says he's going to make color out of industrial waste? The raw materials he needed, they barely even existed, so he had to figure out how to make them himself. The equipment he needed for the factory, it hadn't been invented yet, so he had to design it all from scratch.
In the end, the only way any of this was possible was his family. His dad and his older brother believed in him so much that they took their entire life savings and threw it all into this crazy long-shot idea. The personal stakes just could not have been any higher.
So, with his family's money on the line, Perkin builds his factory. And pretty soon, a world that was mostly shades of brown and gray was about to get a whole lot more exciting.
At first, the English textile dyers were pretty skeptical, kind of conservative. But the French? Oh, the French, the fashion capital of the world, they went for it in a huge way. They renamed the color mauve after a pale purple flower, and it just exploded in Paris. All of a sudden, everybody had to have mauve.
I mean, just stop and look at this timeline for a second. He's 18, he makes the discovery. He's 19, he's building a factory. And by the time he's only 23 years old, William Perkin is rich, he's famous, and he is the #1 world authority on a scientific field that he himself invented. That is an insane trajectory.
And here's the moment that just perfectly captures how far he'd come. The legendary Michael Faraday, the very scientist whose lectures had inspired Perkin as a little kid, was now sitting in the audience, listening to 23-year-old Perkin give a lecture to London's Chemical Society as an equal. The student had become the master. It's just incredible.
But look, this story isn't just about a pretty color that became popular. That accidental discovery did something way more profound. It completely changed how we, as a species, thought about the natural world.
You see, the purple dye itself, that was just the beginning. The real thing Perkin gave the world wasn't a product. It was an idea, a really, really powerful one. Before Perkin, anything synthetic was basically a dirty word. It meant it was a cheap knockoff, a poor substitute for the real thing from nature. Man-made was always second best. But Perkin's mauve, it wasn't just cheaper than the natural dyes. It was actually better. It was brighter, it was more stable, it didn't fade. He proved for the first time that something made in a lab could actually surpass what nature could do.
And that idea just lit a fire under the entire scientific community. Chemists were so inspired by his success, they started creating this whole new world of synthetics. Perkin himself went on to create a compound that launched the entire synthetic perfume industry. And from there, the floodgates opened. Synthetic fabrics, synthetic rubber, and most importantly, countless life-saving synthetic drugs.
And here's the perfect, almost poetic ending to the story. That confidence that Perkin's discovery created, it eventually led other chemists years later during World War II to finally synthesize quinine, the exact drug he failed to create in the first place. His impossible task was finally accomplished, all because he started a revolution by failing at it.
This really just says it all, doesn't it? What started with a teenager, a pile of industrial sludge, and a totally accidental flash of purple gave us the confidence to not just copy nature, but to actually redesign it. It kind of makes you wonder, right? What other world-changing breakthroughs are just sitting there waiting for us, hiding inside our next big mistake?